Hey, thanks for listening to this clip from a full podcast that I did with Paddy Fox, talking about collusion in the mid-Ulster area in the late 80s, early 90s. Absolutely shocking stuff. I'm sure you're going to be as stunned as I was when now all this stuff is coming to light. If you want to listen to the full podcast, the full episode, it's an hour long. You can listen to it on the YouTube. I'll put the links in the show notes or up on the screen here, or you can subscribe to my podcast where it is, you can listen to the audio version of it. Also, don't forget to follow me on Instagram, Twitter, and if you want to support politics, culture and some other shit, you can do that over on Patreon. It's £3 a month, one tier for all my output. Thanks very much now. And don't forget, like, share, subscribe, smash that like button. Thank you, bye.
I'm part of the group called Mid-Ulster Families. We represent 50 families who've had people, men, women and children, who've had people killed by the UVF between 88 and 88 and 1996. And as I go on, I'll tell you that it's mostly the same people, the same gang, the same people, and the same weapons that are used. So that's the link. There's a diagram called the spider's web diagram, and right in the heart of it would be 3 or 4 people, and you can see where the weapons are moved all over mid-Ulster, basically, to do.
Do you have that diagram?
I have it. I can send it to you.
Would you please?
One that was actually, there's a crowd called the Historical Inquiries Team who looked at a lot of the killings, who reviewed them. Now, to be honest, there weren't much cop. It just went over old RUC files, and if the RUC didn't find it, they certainly didn't. But they actually emailed it to our solicitor by mistake, the spider's diagram, and it's now a basis of civil cases, because they never let on to us about all these links. As far as they're concerned, all the shootings were at random and done by different people. So, like, they knew the HET's remit at the start, I think, was probably to cover up a lot of the police inadequacies and the collusion.
So, what is your what are your goals within this group that you're talking?
Well, listen, we're not looking anybody to go to jail. It's too late for that, right? Yeah. Mostly just truth and honesty. You know, the state have an obligation to protect its people. If what happened in Mid-Ulster happened in Surrey, there'd be riots in the street. Yeah, we're seen as the backwater, and sure, we're only Catholics, and that's it. You know. So
it's as simple as that. It boils down to that, doesn't it? Really?
Yeah, like we're just saying, like if we're supposed to be protected by the state, they set up groups within the state to kill our state members. Like, they have to be held accountable. They can't. Yeah. The government, I guess, stops at. It runs as far as Whitehall, as far as we're concerned. Yeah. I'll start from the beginning. So what's the easiest way? Yeah. My parents were Charlie and Tess Fox, and they were shot by the Loyalists in September 1992. Prior to that, my brother-in-law, Kevin McKierney, was shot in January 1992. So my sister lost her husband and her. At the time, it seemed random killing. We would be known as Republicans, but with a very small R. And the history of where I come from, I come from a road called Listamnet Road, and it's 12 houses. And then from 1972 to 1992, there's been 6 people shot on it, all Catholics. The road's half a mile long. So the more you would be in part of what's called the Motor Triangle. And at the heart of the triangle was Portadown, where the Loyalist stronghold, and they could feed out towards East Tyrone or towards North Armagh, towards Guildford. And if you look at all the killings from 72 on, they're all in around that area. Yeah. So that was their run back. So anyway, my parents were killed in 1992. The first person killed in Tyrone was 1988. Fella McNelly down, and the last one was killed was 1994. Kathleen O'Hagan. She was a pregnant woman, shot up in outside Gortin. She was pregnant at the time. They shot her in the stomach, so made sure the baby would die. Oh my God. So as we went on, it became increasingly clear that they were very good and got very good very quick, or they were getting state help. Because prior to 88, there was no killings in Mid-Ulster for maybe 8 or 9 years. The Loyalists in Mid-Ulster were finished after the Clifford McKeown Supergrass trial in the mid-80s. In 1985-86, Billy Wright was a preacher, born-again Christian, wasn't involved. So something along the way reactivated the Mid-Ulster Loyalists. And I think it was a direct response to the state getting worried about the guns that Colonel Gaddafi had sent the IRA, and they had to counteract that because it took them by surprise. They had no idea the amount of, until the accident was caught, they had no idea the amount of guns that the IRA were importing.
Wow.
So they didn't. It's only, they came late to the game, and suddenly from 1987, the Loyalists went from maybe having a handful of guns in the whole of the north till they were getting in automatic rifles, they were getting in rocket launchers, something they never had before. And that doesn't happen by accident. But
it's known that Loyalists were colluding way before that.
Oh, absolutely. This starts with Billy Hanna in 1971 was the UVF leader in Mid-Ulster. And he was an old school UVF man. His role had been action against Republicans rather than civilians. Right. And he took Robin Jackson under his wing, later called the Jackal. Yeah. And Jackson was working like I'm trying to work this out. What year it was he killed? I mean, he ended up killing his OC, shot him in front of his wife, basically, and took over. And from then they went purely sectarian. And it was to counteract what the IRA were doing, trying to drag the IRA into a sectarian war.
Yes.
You know, it's like from a Republican point of view.
Billy Wright has said that.
If you're not seen as defending your people, they're not going to let you in through their doors.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it would distract Republicans from which the real target would be obviously the British. If you have to sort of start going after Loyalists as well, you know.
Yeah.
So it would have been Kitson would have this. You've heard of Frank Kitson. That'd have been his. You use the locals to shoot each other, you know.
Yes, of course, yeah.
So after Jackson killed Billy Hanna, he actually killed Billy Hanna in front of Billy Hanna's wife, and she refused to give evidence against him. So Jackson took over and became just mass. If you look at all the big bombings and the shootings of the 70s, that was Jackson. So it was. Now, what we found out through disclosure is Jackson was actually taken away and trained. So he was somewhere in Wales. So you can imagine it's probably, or near Wales. So I imagine it's some secret place anyway. And he came back and he recruited other like-minded loyalists, but not as smart. He recruited killers, basically. Yeah. And they became known as the Glenanne Gang.
Yes.
And everything they did was the Dublin Monaghan bombings. It was 3 days before that the Dáil were going to have a vote on the new anti-terror laws in the south. And there was a lot of opposition to the new anti-terror laws. But when you have 31 people killed in Dublin, they went through no problem. You couldn't be seen not to have anti-terror laws, you know?
Yes.
And that doesn't happen. They're not that good. They're not that smart.
Yes.
So our thing would be that they were all along. It was they were being fed by a higher military intelligence, obviously.
Yeah.
It wasn't RUC. Like RUC would have had their informers, but not to the extent. They wouldn't be directing people. So the one whereas Jackson was being directed to do what he did. Mm-hmm. And if you look at his targets in this area, were all married couples. So there were, within the Moy area itself, there's been 5 sets of married couples shot dead. And that terrorized people. That puts people, you know, if the IRA or Republicans can't be seen to defend them, and you know yourself, you said yourself, people couldn't sleep at night what was going to happen next.
Well, how many people did I read correctly the other day? The Glenanne Gang were responsible for the hundreds of murders.
Yeah, I think the about 180.
Aye.
That's what they're directly involved in. Then there'll be, you know, indirect ones as well. But actually 180 were, and Jackson was responsible for maybe 35 actual shootings.
Really? He pulled the trigger as men?
Oh, yeah. He was a gunman, man.
Jesus. So those 180 murders that can be attributed directly to the Glenanne Gang, we're talking about every one of those being as a direct result of collusion as well, right?
Yes. Well, if it stands to reason,
It stands to reason, yeah.
If Jackson is an agent, Jackson's not an informant. Jackson's an agent, so he's being directed by someone, and they're saying this is who you go after. Now, I've no doubt they killed people for personal reasons too.
Oh, okay, yeah.
You know, but like most of them would have been the likes of the Reevy brothers in South Armagh would have been and our ones would have been just saying, right, be as dirty as you can, go into that house and kill everybody and put the fear of God in them. And that's what it did.
Yeah. And that's
absolutely put the fear. Like,
it did that.
I can remember growing up here in the 70s, like around here, like, and you had shutters in your window at night and all, so they wouldn't see a chink of light coming out.